Inshallah, we'll start now. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this week's MoD. With us we have a special guest, Brother Abdul Halim, who's come all the way from Edge Road to enlighten us of his journey through life and what led him to becoming a Muslim. So just let Brother Halim introduce. I'll let Brother Halim introduce himself. Just let the brothers know what you do. And
okay, I'm Abdul Halim. I became Muslim, I think, I can't remember if it's 5 or 6 years ago this year now. It seems to have gone so quick. But, I've lived and worked in this area for 20 years as a driving instructor. I've recently got married a year and a half ago to a Moroccan sister who lived near Edgware Road, near the police station, so not so far to tip out when you've been arrested. And I've got 2 of my stepsons here today, the middle one and the youngest one. The oldest one is at university in Egham somewhere. So that's me.
As we know, the journey of Islam isn't easy. Even for Muslims, people who are born and raised as Muslim within Muslim households, we know that sticking to Islam is something hard, something difficult, and even takes us some change in our lives or some sort of thought and process for us to come to realize that the deen, Islam, is the truth. It's the deen. Without the deen, we have nothing else. And it leads us to look towards Islam for our answers. So today we'll be going through the story. Inshallah, Brother Halim will enlighten us with the story of his journey through Islam and what helped him to come to the path of Islam. So just start off, if you could let the brothers know, what was your name before you, as we know your name is Abdul Halim now, but what was your name before you accepted the deen?
Okay, my full name, my English name is Kenneth George Watson.
So, what made you? Did you always believe in the Creator, or was it something you came to realize afterwards, or how did you come about with this idea that there must be a Creator?
I think when I was growing up, I was brought up as a Christian. So we used to go to what we call Sunday school. So they talk about God, Jesus, created heaven and earth in 7 days and all this. But when you get a bit older, sort of God was, yeah, it could be, maybe, I don't know. You sort of wishy-washy about it. You sort of believe one year and then you think, oh, I don't believe in God, I can do what I like. So it wasn't really a central part of my life. You sort of, yeah, some things might have happened, you think, oh, I believe in God, there must be a God, I needed God. And then sometimes when the crisis is all over, then you just sort of, oh, I don't think there's a God. So it was up and down. There wasn't any sort of definite in my mind. I just sort of went with the tides. Yeah, one year might be a God, next year no God. Like that.
What triggered you to look to Islam?
What triggered it was, in my job as a driving instructor, I taught a Muslim girl, and I think there was a story in the paper about Muslims. We stopped off and had a chat, and I told her about the story in the paper, and then I told her everything I knew about Islam. Women are oppressed, they have to marry who they're told to, they've got no rights, things like this. And then she told me that I can marry who I like, I can have my own business, I get inheritance. And from that one talk, it started to process in my mind, thinking that I don't know anything about Islam. That I thought I knew, but I don't. So I thought maybe I should start looking into it.
Was it just a solo-based effort where you went out and looked, or was there other people you discussed with? And
from that point, I didn't see her again after that for some strange reason. She stopped taking driving lessons. But as these things happen. As she finished, I've got another sister, one who wear a hijab and jilbab. And then we started talking, and she started explaining things to me, and then she started lending me like tapes and then videos. So I was listening to tapes, and then I was watching some videos, and then I'd ask her questions, and she'd come back to me with some answers. And so it started from there. So from her, the quest started. And from once she gave me knowledge, and I started looking for more knowledge, and then it became either I went out and bought a book, or I went to the shops. I thought I bought an Idiot's Guide to Islam. You know, you all got it then. I got that, and I was reading other stuff. And then in the meantime, because I teach mostly around here, I was coming in contact more and more with other brothers who start asking questions. They start giving you responses, and start making you think about things. So it was like that process. It wasn't just one person. It was sort of many people and many different things.
Just to how many discussions would you say you had before? Just personally, obviously everyone is different, but personally, how many discussions would you say you had?
I think at the beginning it wasn't much discussions with many people. It was just me reading up. So for the first part of the journey, I was talking, got some tapes. Then I think the sister passed, and I'm still carrying on reading. But I wasn't really talking to people. And then it became, for me, at that point, it became a thing about whether to be a Muslim or not. And I spoke to my wife at the time, and she wasn't too keen on it. So I then put Islam to the back again and went to continue with the marriage. It wasn't until later, a few years later, that it always bothered me, that decision. And then that decision wouldn't go away, and it came more and more into my mind. And then I've got another brother, I was teaching another brother, and we started chatting a bit more about Islam. I was telling him stuff I knew, and then he was correcting me on some of it, and then he asked me questions. So it started from there. And then the interest grew more and more stronger from that.
So at what point did you realise that, Islam, this is it?
Oh.
I have to take this step.
I think, for me, it wasn't a definite moment. I think I was frightened to take that step. It came to that point. Everybody's there telling me, when I was talking to them, you know a lot about Islam, why don't you become a Muslim? Why don't you take Shahada? And I said, no, I'm not ready. I can't. How can I know more than a Muslim? How can you tell me I know more than most Muslims? This is what some brothers told me. And I said, I don't know that much. How could I know more? No, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And they say, no, you take the Shahada. You're ready. You can do it. And I said, no, I'm not. And I wouldn't have done it if one brother hadn't given me a sort of little nudge. So.
You talked about your hesitations. You talked also about you were a Christian. What kind of emotions did you go through? What were the barriers that you had to overcome, especially with the society that we live in, and these actions of going out and whatnot? You have to take a step back. How did you feel about that? What kind of thoughts did you have about that?
The society part of it wasn't a problem, actually. I think the more problem was, in my mind, what you had to do to be a Muslim. You have to pray 5 times a day, which seems quite a lot to a non-Muslim. 5 times a day, I'm too busy. How am I going to make time for 5 prayers? And then you got the fasting during Ramadan. It's hard to, when you're not fasting, you've never fasted before, and you tell someone you can't eat all day. You just look. I mean, I've got. It's not easy with a big belly. It's like barriers like that. And you start thinking about why you can't become a Muslim, because you can't. It's too much effort. But then them barriers, you sort of cross over them, sort of thing. Well, I think the first barrier for me was there a God. I sort of think, is there a God? I think that was the first one. And then I thought about it, and I looked around, and I came to the conclusion I couldn't see why there wasn't one. And then, if there is a God, what is it all about? From that. So I went from like a hurdle. Is there a God? Yes. Now, could I pray 5 times a day? Well, I don't think so. And then I started thinking about it. Yeah, it's not that much effort. It's only a few minutes every day. And then I thought about fasting, and I thought, it was winter time at the time. I thought, how could you go from 8 till 4? I didn't realise about the summer then. but it's just crossing each barrier and ticking them off the list, and then you sort of think, there may be, but at the time, that going from non-Muslim to Muslim was a big leap, and it wasn't an easy decision at the time. It wasn't a decision I was, how can I put it? It's a decision that scared me in a way, until I did it. And when I did it, Then I thought, oh, I should have done it bloody early.
You talked about how you looked at Islam, the 5 daily prayers, the Ramadan. Just for the brothers, just in light, but how did you spend your time before Islam?
I was thinking about this. I was thinking, I'm going on a Sunday night and talking to a youth. So I was thinking, what was I like in my youth? And apart from a slimmer belly, I would be in the pub now on a Sunday night with my friends, drinking beer, chatting rubbish, and that's what we would be doing. And then we'd come out the pub, stag at home, maybe pop into a takeaway, and then or roll home and try not to pretend we were drunk to our parents, and then watch 2 TVs. And that was my Friday, Saturday and Sunday. that was my life. It was go down the pub, socialise, what I thought was a good time.
Overall, with these actions, you talk about the path and what you did, do you think these actions had maybe pushed you towards Islam? Like, did these actions make you feel happy? Did these actions satisfy your needs, or would you say that these actions, maybe open your eyes to other things?
I think it was way before I even thought about Islam. I think it's part of what society does. As you grow up, you see what your parents do and what your surrounding family does, and life really revolves around. With all your friends, is going to the pub. Your family goes to the pub, your dad goes to the pub, your uncles go to the pub. So when you're a child, you see your parents going to the pub. You want to go there as well. You want to be part of the fun and action, and it just becomes a natural part of life. When I started work, every Friday afternoon, we have a bit longer lunch break. We go to the pub. It's the culture. It's the way it is. So Islam then wasn't part of my life, but that was my life at the time, and I thought that was it. As for happiness. Drinking, it brings out a lot of emotions. It does bring happiness, but it's a temporary happiness, because it also can make you sad, it can make you happy, it can make you laugh, it makes you cry, it makes you sick. It does all these things for you. Yeah. So one day you might have a drink, you might feel happy, and you go and have another drink. The next day you feel sick. Oh, what did I do that for? And you're like a dog chasing your tail. You're not really catching anything. Yeah. But at the time, that's what I thought life was about: going out, having a good time, drinking, and that was my life. I didn't think of anything else then. It wasn't until later.
So now that you've taken the step, do you feel that this is a more productive or happier way of life that you've chosen, or?
Yeah, it's much more. It's much better. I've got some idea where I'm going, purpose, and I'm much more focused in what I'm doing. I'm not wasting time. I mean, you go to the pub, I don't know what the prices are there, but you can go and you spend a lot of money in the pub. Whereas that money now I can spend on my family, supporting them, things like this. So I've got much more focus. I'm in control, I'm happier. I don't need a drink to make me feel happier. I've got a good family, loving family, I've got good loving brothers around me. I don't need that type of lifestyle anymore. I've got much more peace of mind, and I'm much more happier with myself.
Have you seen a different reaction to maybe to the people you used to know before?
Mostly, my family, I think, see me a bit different. Obviously, for them, when they saw me when I was younger, I was mostly drunk and I was staggering around. But I think they do see the change in me, and I think it's a positive change. But they don't say too much, but I think they're glad. In a way, I think their outlook is they're happy if I'm happy, and they're glad I'm chosen the path that I have. But for them, it's not for them at the moment.
How has it been for? How has the reaction been from the Muslim side when people realise you're Muslim?
Well, I tell you, when I took that shahada, I've never been kissed by a man before. What's this about? And then telling me it'd be good if I died. What have I done? That's it's because they're so happy, It's hard to understand when you're not a Muslim. Well, actually, I can understand it, because when I go to a mosque and I see someone take the shahada, I go up and shake their hand straight away. Because it is it's a joyous feeling because you know what they're coming into. You know, you know what they're coming into. So it was a bit shocking at first when people said everybody wanted to shake my hand and hug me. You know, it was a bit overwhelming, but I understand, you know, because you get such joy when you see someone take the Shahada. So at the time it was a bit, ooh. But now I'll be the first one in the queue. So if anybody wants to take Shahada and a hug and a kiss, in a halal way.
Your perception about Muslims before and how has that changed?
Yes, well, I used to get all my information from the newspapers, you know, the news, news bulletins, family, friends, and you know, Islam then is not Islam. Well, it's probably worse now portrayed actually. What's said about Islam? You don't get anything positive about Islam in the news and from the media. It's all negative. So I can remember stories about you know, people blowing up planes, terrorist acts. You don't see anything positive about Muslims. You always have been accused of being backward, want to live in a tent, in the desert, riding camels, don't want to embrace modern technology. You know, it's a lot of negatives. And I can understand why people feel that, because that's all you hear all the time. You know, you didn't hear anything positive about it.
Do you think as Muslims we should, maybe it's a responsibility on us, on maybe yourself and us, now that you've made that change to help change this image of Islam?
Well, yeah, of course. Firstly, it's a good reminder to myself that I have to promote Islam. I've come into Islam. It's my job to promote Islam in a positive light, and when I hear people talk about Islam and they're wrong, I have to correct them. It is a job upon us all, because I think I used to work at a place, and I used to know there was a guy there, and I didn't know he was a Muslim until one night he came down and he said he was fasting. I'm not eating, bruv, because I'm fasting. I didn't know he was a Muslim. And I've worked with him for like 3 or 4 years. You know? He's like kept it quiet, you know, and he never talked about Islam or anything like that. And you know, people you come across Muslims, they didn't talk about it or say anything about it. You know, I worked with people who came from Sri Lanka. They told me about Tamil tigers. I've worked with people from Serbia who explained to me why Serbians don't like Croats and Bosnians and stuff like that. But I never met a Muslim who actually told me about Islam. And you know, as Muslims, you know, you have a duty, and you have to know. If you know your stuff, tell people. And if you don't know your stuff, then go back and find out, and then come back and tell them. And it's important that we tell people the truth. You know, because there's a lot of people out there, non-Muslims, who have ideas about Islam, and they won't know any different until you tell them. And if someone hadn't told me, then I could still be down the pub now.
You mentioned that a few people discussed with you, and eventually a brother nudged you towards becoming Muslim. And you say you're happy with these actions. Would you say that it was something that was necessary for you to become Muslim, or is it just, you know, coincidence? Maybe just you were looking at it and they spoke. Or was it necessary for them to speak to you for you to eventually make that change?
I think it was good for them to speak to me, actually, because you can read books and you can take Islam from a book, but until someone puts questions to you and makes you think about what you've just read in it, then you're in danger of just reading the book, oh I like that, without actually really taking it board and thinking about it. So it's good that the brothers, they ask specific questions, you know, what do you think about this, what do you think a Muslim does, blah blah blah. You know, and then it makes you think, and you questions before you take if I'd have took the step just by reading the book, it might have been like oh yeah, I'm going to be a Muslim, and about 2 weeks later, oh, this is not working out for me. Whereas the brothers made me think long and hard about the step, and this is, I think, one of the reasons why I took a long time doing it, because I was thinking, you know, this is a big change, and when you do a big change, you want to make sure you get it right, and if you feel like it's not right, you sort of hover and think, well, you waver a bit. So it takes good brothers, actually. They were good brothers, and I appreciate what they did for me, even though it was a bit of a struggle for them.
In Islam, this invitation to Islam is known as dawah, as you already know. As a person who accepted Islam, do you have any tips for the brothers of how to maybe go about, you know, maybe speaking to them? Maybe people are scared, you know, that reaction. What am I gonna say? What am I gonna do? What are they gonna say? You know, different places. Any advice?
I think one of the things is you have to judge it on the situation. If you know somebody and you know you want to be with them around all the time, you can do it gradually. You know, you can get to know them first, and then you sort of introduce it a bit gradually. If it's someone you're going to meet for the first time and you maybe never see them again, you know, you might have to be a bit more direct with them. You know, because you're never going to see them again, so you haven't got time to say, do you know what, I'm a Muslim. If you're here next week, I'll tell you a little bit more. It's too late. So I think you have to sort of judge it on the situation. But if you get the chance, just try it, just to make the effort. Just tell them a little bit about Islam. You know, there's a lot of examples now at the moment in society. You can see the country's in a mess. You know, and you can maybe give something. You think of some example Islamically in the past that happened that's, you know, relevant to today.
Okay. As you see, Brother Abdul Halim's journey through Islam was unique for himself. But everyone, you know, every opportunities. We have many. We live in a nation, you know, which is non-Muslim nation. You know, the Christian is a multicultural nation as well. Especially in the heartland, we're in London. We're one of the most diverse cities in the world. Unlike any other, we get opportunity nearly every day. Schools, colleges, work, neighbours, walking down the street, just shopkeepers. It falls upon us as Muslims to then go out and give that message. Just maybe a newsletter, maybe just a salam, and you ask, what is that? You take it from there. There have been a lot of brothers, a lot of sisters who have reverted to Islam through discussion and the importance of us going out and giving Islam. If the Rasul ﷺ never went out and gave Islam, where would we be today? One of the main purposes of Islam is for us to go out and do this dawah. And without this dawah, Islam wouldn't have flourished like this. We'll open up for a moment of Q&A. Inshallah, if any brother has any questions for Brother Abdul Halim. Brother at the back. Salam.
The brother here in the audience who's discussing with his colleague here, he was a Christian, born again Christian, recently he's become very practicing, so he's trying to give the brother down and he's trying to give him down here. And he's been invited to go and meet his pastor, the priest, the guy who runs the church in Mahadia. What advice would you give him in terms of that angle or tips of discussion and what kind of points he should raise? I'm sure because yourself from a Christian background, you've got some things that you asked Christianity yourself or question yourself, which weren't answered and you never stood up to your kind of rational criteria.
Thank you for the question. Right, I think we Christians, they believe in God as well. So you don't have to talk about God, but what do they say about God? They say that you know, God forgives man all his sins, and that Jesus was his son. And straight away there's a contradiction with Islam, because we say that Jesus was not the son of God, he was a prophet. So you can talk along them lines. And also they talk about the Father, Son and the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit. Yeah? So you ask them what that is, and they'll say it's God, basically. But how can he be a Father, Son and the Holy Spirit? So it gets them all confused and everything like that. So what you want to talk about is then how Islam is implemented in your life, and Christianity is not. Christianity is sort of where if you believe, you keep it indoors. You don't make it part of your life. Islam has a system where you have guidelines and rules to adhere to your life to make you happier. Christianity doesn't have that. So you can talk about what impact Christianity has in life and what impact Islam has in life. Does that answer your question, bro?
Alhamdulillah, we came to the deen from many Muslims who are born in the deen, but for some reason they find it hard to struggle to practice or they feel they have to delay it maybe to a later time in life after they're married, or maybe after they've got their degree or their education's finished. What would you say to these kind of problems?
You know, this is quite a common thing I hear sometimes, that you know, people born into Muslim families, they don't practice because for whatever reasons they've not understood Islam properly and how Islam should play a part in their life, and then they think, I'll do all the bad stuff first and, you know, do all the good stuff, and then I'll start practicing. But it doesn't work like that with Islam, because you don't know when your time is up, and it could be too late. So if you think to yourself, I'm going to start practicing at 25, but you die at 22, then you've missed out. So I would say that you've got to think about prioritising and making sure that Islam becomes part of your life, that you stick to the deen, follow the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the Quran, and that if you do that, then your life will be better for it and more enriched.
You know, before you reverted to a Muslim, what did you actually do in the day? Like, when you
I was mostly working, but when I wasn't working, sorry, as a youth, did you say? Or?
Yeah, youth.
As a youth, well, I started work at 16. So you mean before that? Well, a long way back. The memory's not as good as it used to be. Well, I was at school till 16, and I would do what, you know, it was possible, really. I used to truant from school, used to come up to town, walk around record shops, you know, play football a lot, you know, walk around the street, walk up and down the streets, you know, like all you do. Youths, you know, patrol the street just in case it moves. And that's what I used to do. That was my life, you know. Oh yeah, no, I started drinking at 14 as well. So I used to hang around with old people, older people, brothers, well, not brothers at the time, but friends, and we used to go around, buy cans of drink and walk up and down the road, drink, and think we were really cool. So that was my life.
Would you say that was something due to society, or just because everyone was doing it, peer pressure, or just?
I don't think everybody was doing it at the time, but we did it, and it was because we could and we wanted to. And it seemed cool at the time. But obviously, when you look back at your life, sometimes you wish you could. You think, what was I doing? You know, what if I could change my life? I would change it. I wouldn't have done all this. But I think, look at it. It makes you what you are. So sometimes you've got to look back at your life and you think, I used to do this and that, and you think, oh, what was I doing? But if I hadn't done it, I might not have ended up where I am today. So it was part of me, but I've changed my life. I'm better than I was then.
Assalamu alaikum. Obviously your identity before you joined the global family of Islam was British, but when we look at what's happening in the Muslim world today, we see obviously what happened to Afghanistan, what happened to Iraq, and obviously Britain was involved in sending their armies and killing a lot of Muslims, America, so and so. What's your view on this country now? It'd be quite interesting to know.
Well, yeah, it's funny because when I was younger and growing up, you thought Britain was like the best place, you know, and the British people we brought civilization to the rest of the world. Yeah, that we took you from the darkness and give you tea and biscuits and afternoon tea and everything like that, and civilised you all. Yeah, and then as I've got a bit older and become a Muslim, I've realised that really what we did was we just went in your countries and took everything out that was good, and then we give you everything that's bad. And it angers me when I see that you know, the reasons why people the Western countries go into the Muslim countries is for really to take the wealth again. You know, it's not really about regime changes, Saddam Hussein was, because there's a lot of bad leaders in the world, and they don't take them out. And it angers me, you know, Palestine angers me, you know, after I read the history about it. And when you start looking at the history of what Britain, France, the colonial powers did to the world, you know, it just makes you think, oh, you know, how could I think that Britain was great? They're only great at taking other people's wealth. And it does anger me. It does anger me. Makes my blood boil. He just wants to go. He wants to go home.
When you were a Christian before you were Muslim, did you celebrate Christmas, and did you believe in what you were celebrating?
Well, Christmas is for Christians. It's obviously it's the birthday of Jesus Christ. That's what Christian brought up to believe as a Christian. It's his birthday. So when you're younger, you haven't got much idea. You celebrate, but then you realise there's another guy on the scene, Santa Claus, and he brings you presents. So he's much more interesting. So as you,
Santa Claus?
huh?
Did you believe in Santa Claus?
Yes, I believed in Santa Claus, of course. I tried to stay awake to see him, so I can see my presents. And as you get a bit older, it becomes it's a day off, a couple of days off, holidays, so you can go out and celebrate having a day off and holidays. And then because it's like a big thing in the Western society of Christmas and holidays, you go out and celebrate, which in traditional ways, go and get drunk and wake up next day, go down the pub where you're badly designed jumper presents and then get drunk again. So that was Christmas for me through the ages until I became a Muslim. And now it's a normal working day for me.
Brother, right with black jacket. Salam.
Jazakallah khair for taking your most important thing at the time, after your job or your family's time, and things that come to let's support, inshallah. Recently, we saw the issue of racism, i.e. the case of Stephen Lawrence and the footballers issues and all these sort of things, and I'm actually sure that most of the brothers who saw the video on YouTube. And this issue of racism in this society is a huge issue, and the government actually spends millions to especially when try to stop that issue. How do you think Islam actually solves that? Do you feel as a person who's actually non-Arab, when you came to Islam, was there any sort of negative issues against you? Could you explain that, please?
Jazakallah for your question, brother. So I grew up in South London, and I think I grew up not too far away from Milton, from Stephen. So at the time, racism was more out in your face in society at that time. There was a difference. And now I think it's a little bit more indoors. I think people keep their tongues inside their houses, not so much outside. When you come into Islam, there's no racism. I can go to a mosque, and I don't like classifying mosques by their nationality, but I can go into certain mosques where certain brothers from a certain country come to, and I can go and pray there, and I can pray next to them. They're a different colour to me, and they done better than I did. And I can go to another masjid where brothers are a different colour to them and me, and I can pray next to them. And I can go to a mosque and I can have a black brother next to me and a brown brother next to me, and I can have a yellow brother or another white brother back next to me, and it doesn't matter. It does not matter one bit. We're all equal in Islam. We're all equal. You don't look at a brother from a different country and look down on him. You don't look down or you think, oh, I better get in front of him because he's a different colour. No, there's none of that in Islam. And that's one of the true beauties of Islam, is that you can pray anywhere, next to anybody from any country, any colour, and it doesn't bother you whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it's a better thing actually, because you go and meet brothers from all over the world. You know, you can meet brothers from Chechnya. I met brothers from Chechnya, Albania, Bangladesh, Somalia. You know, they don't care. You know, we're all happy to see each other. There's a bond. There's a link to us all, and we're all one family. You know, whereas in this country we struggle, don't we? You know, black people don't go up the ladder because they're black. You know, brown people don't get this type of jobs. You know, they never said you get an Asian person being a footballer. You know, because they're too small. You know, it's true. You know, this is you get this in this society where it's a big problem. But in Islam you don't have this. It's not. Everybody's equal. That's beautiful. You can't get any better than that. If they looked at how Islam is run, you wouldn't have half these problems.
I have 3 questions in one actually. Which part of the, because you said you've looked into some of the Islamic history, which part of the Islamic history did you like the most? Also, which Islamic figure in history do you like a lot? And third one is, what part of the Islamic history would you love to have been a part of or see today?
Oh. I'll see if I can remember this. You asked me 3, bruv. Give me a chance. Islamic history. I like the battles. To tell you the truth, I like the war side of it. So it's a bit gruesome, but you know the struggle. I think when you see like early on, like the Battle of Badr, the first battle, when 300 Muslims were fighting 1,200 Qurayshis. And I'm sorry if I get some of these figures wrong, but please check up yourselves these figures. And they stood firm and fought for the sake of Allah. You know, that must have been something. And you know, the famous battles which Khalid bin Walid fought, where he fought the 3,000 against the 100,000 Romans and their allies, and one of the other battles where there were 40,000 against 120,000. That must be fantastic. And obviously, like the fall of Constantinople and the taking of Mecca. I think that would have been the place I would like to have seen. And what was the other question I missed out?
What part of history would you have wanted?
That's Mecca. I would like to see Mecca.
The major figure.
And the major figure. Well, obviously the Prophet Muhammad you know, just one thing. If you had one chance to just spend like a minute, you think how much your life would have been enriched. You know, I know it's never going to happen, but you know, there's that feeling that you could, because he did so much, and he was such a good example to us all. You know, you read stories and you find sometimes new stories about how he was. Like, you know, when the lady used to throw out the thorns and the rubbish in front of him, and then one day she wasn't there, and I thought when someone told me so, she must have died. I thought, good, she's not going to do that anymore. she was sick, and he went and visited her. And I thought, she does it every day. You know, we would just think, and he goes and visits her. So the example that we get from the Prophet Muhammad is good. But I think the other one who used to stand out for me was the blind brother, Abdullah Maktoum, I think his name is. And he was always exempt from going to war, and every time they went to war he was in charge of Medina, or part of Medina. And then one day he wanted to go and fight, and he got permission to fight, and he carried the banner, and he was martyred, made shaheed, even though he was excused, and he was still clinging onto the Muslim banner. And you think to yourself, what an example that is. You know, he was excused from fighting, but he still wanted to stand next to his brothers and, you know, gain that honour, even though he was exempt. So I think, and there's a lot more examples as well, because, you know, when you start looking at the lives of the Sahaba, and you see the strength, the determination inside them, and the things that they went through. But they're my 2 favourites. Did I get them all now, brother?
Yeah.
Probably black.
I just want to ask, as a Muslim, you, after in the life of Islam, have you got any workshops or any activities which you have actually created to invite non-Muslims to actually see the side of Islam, and thus one thing, and majority of us here in this, alhamdulillah, we were born Muslims, and we come across non-Muslims in our lives every single day. What's the reward of actually taking the message of Islam to someone else and making them into a Muslim?
Okay, just like a current question, bruv. Right, with the non-Muslims, obviously we have a duty to pass Islam on to them. You know, the Prophet Muhammad came down with a message for all of mankind. So we have a duty to pass that message on. So if you get the chance to talk to them about Islam, explain something, even if you, I think the Prophet Muhammad said, even if you know one ayah, you know, pass it on. So we have a duty to pass on information and knowledge about Islam, not to Muslims and non-Muslims. So if you come across a non-Muslim, you know, try to give them some information about Islam. You know, find out what they like and don't like, what they have misconception about. You know, obviously, like sisters, they always say that sisters are oppressed, and why do they cover? Well, then you can tell them why they cover. It's modesty, you know. And if you don't know, if they ask you a question, go and find out. Tell them, I'll go and find out. Get that knowledge yourself, and then pass it back on to them. We're always getting, trying to make ourselves better and get the knowledge. You know what? The first question I got off one of my uncles, when I told him I was a Muslim, and I was expecting him to ask me something, you know, like why do women recover and why do you pray 5 times a day? He goes, how does an Islamic bank make money then? I was like, I haven't got a clue. So I had to go and find out. You know? It shocked, it took me by surprise. I didn't know. I didn't know. If I didn't know, I can't tell him, I can't make it up. So I had to go and find the knowledge, and then I told him. Yeah, so that's what you have to do. With the second part, the first part of your question, what do I do? Well, I get, when I get asked to go to non-Muslim events, or when there's non-Muslims there, I come out and I talk to them and maybe say a few words and tell them my story and journey. And if I get, I haven't set up anything else such as that. I don't feel like I'm qualified enough to do that. I feel, you know, that I need to build myself up a little bit more before I did something like that, set up a website. Because I feel like my knowledge is not sufficient yet. But that's something for me to improve myself.
I don't know if you've mentioned this already, so bear with me. Ultimately, what was the, when your brothers were discussing with you, what was ultimately this one thing that got you, that sparked your thinking about Islam, would you say?
I don't think, I try to think about this and I can never remember what it is. I never remember what it was. I think it's just, it was a slow, gradual process of overcoming, gaining knowledge and thinking about the knowledge that I've gained. You know, you read up about the 5 popular things. Hajj always fascinated. When I see Hajj on TV, always fascinated when I was a non-Muslim. People, and I thought I'd like to go there and see that, but I didn't realise as a non-Muslim I couldn't. You know, I've been straight down the travel agent. Can I go to Mecca? I want to see that Hajj. It's one of the things that it fascinated me. And I think talking to brothers, they ask you sort of questions. Do you believe in God? Why do you believe in God? Why do you think there's a God? What do you think your purpose is in life? You know, why are you here? If you think there's a God, what's he made you for? And these things start building up until the evidence is overwhelmed. But I wouldn't say, I can't remember one particular thing. So I'm sorry for the answer, but seems a bit lame, but that's the truth.
Wasn't the curry, was it?
It was the curry, yeah.
Okay, so any other questions? No? Okay. We'll end it here, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Brother Halim, for coming down.
Thank you.
Telling us about the journey you took. Inshallah, will inspire us to go out and now maybe pass this message on you know, even if it's a small thing, small token, just, you know, go out there and speak to someone. No, okay. To go out there, speak. Just generally, you know, there's misconceptions out there that, you know, as brothers, and, you know, we have sisters and whatnot, we could pass this. We could tell them as well to go out and speak to other women folk as well. So it's a duty upon us now that we've seen that Brother Halim here, you know, took that step, found out, and then got help from the Muslims to then eventually take that step. And that link between him initially taking Islam, looking at Islam, and taking the step to becoming a Muslim, had Muslims discussing with him. So, you know, inshallah, we take that and we move forward with it. In saying that, next week, inshallah, you know, Brother Halim talked about, maybe this one's for Brother Halim, he talked about, next week, inshallah, the topic will be about the military, the Islamic military. Nowadays we see, we have two major wars happening in Afghanistan and Iraq, and we see all these things coming out like American soldiers, if you didn't realize, pissing on dead people, molestation of young kids and then videoing it, continuous reports of actions that come out like Abu Ghraib and whatnot. And we want to look at, what did the Muslim army do? Did we go down this route as well? When we went, did we kill? Did we blow up buildings? What did we do? What was the difference? Or were we exactly the same? We want to take an in-depth look at what a military structure within the Islamic, within Islam is. What kind of criteria are put down. So inshallah, you maybe come and join us inshallah next week, 7 o'clock. But also, before we go on ahead, inshallah, this is something you want to try out. As you know, as we move forward, we want to see what the audience themselves think about MoD and what topics do you want to hear from MoD. Obviously, we have a blogspot, we have a web, we have a web page, and we're also on Facebook. You can pass your message on from there. But right now, just any brothers with any ideas, you want to raise your hand and tell us a topic you like to hear in MoD. No topic.
About Islamic science.
Islamic, sorry?
Science.
Science. Okay, Islamic science. Anything else? No, that's it. Islamic science.
Mock debates.
Mock debates. All right. Any particular?
Maybe like the existence of a creator.
Okay, existence of creator. That would be a good one, relevant to this discussion. Anything else? No. No Sahabas. Nothing bothering you.
Even inviting non-Muslims down.
Inviting non-Muslims down. That's it? Okay, fine. We got free discussion there. But inshallah, if you do want to forward any ideas that you want to hear that you think the youth or anyone might have, you know, issues about, so anything relevant for the, obviously you know the reality, you're out there, you're speaking with them, you can pass it forward to us through any of our brothers, and Facebook, the blogspot, the email, the YouTube. It's all on our leaflet, inshallah. So before, as we end it now, there's refreshments at the back. Inshallah, pass the message on, inshallah, let the brothers know that there's a weekly circle happening. We'll actually end with the door. Inshallah, we'll end with the door. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.